Hello and welcome to the lecture where we're going to be creating the Brain Trainer app. So this is going to take a lot of the concepts that we've learned, the timer and some other things, bring them all together. We're going to even tap into some old stuff by like working with the grid layout. We're also going to be talking about working with random numbers and stuff, just lots of good things. But this is the app that you want to make. So it's going to say Brain Trainer. It's going to have this nice go button. And as soon as you hit this, boom, all of a sudden you're in this game where you've got a timer up at the top left. You've got this math problem. What's 2 plus 4? I think that's 6. So you hit that and it says, oh, you're correct. And it's keeping track of your score. If you answer a question wrong, it'll tell you that you're wrong and say, you only got 1 out of this. And, so you can just keep trying as many times as you can, as long as you've got time here. And, it's kind of, how many questions can you get right in a certain amount of time? And, if you want to, you can keep track of the percentage that the user got or whatever. So once it's finished, we want to tell the user that game over, and they can hit play again here, and then that means that they can start a fresh new game. So, of course, this is a challenge for you. Do as much of this as you can on your own. A quick tip for you is that when you're working with these buttons, it's nice to use something called tags. So you can go ahead and Google to learn a little bit more about that, or you can say, you know what, I'm doing this my own way. I'm not going to worry about this tag stuff, whatever you'd like. So go ahead, create this, then come back, watch how I do it. If you ever need some help, I'm there for you. But let's go ahead and start building this thing. Hit pause now. All right, let's go ahead and start our new project here. We're going to go ahead and just call it Brain Trainer. Excellent. And we just want the standard for everything here. So we'll just go ahead and go through that process. So at the very first place that we want to start with this is that big start button, right? So someone can hit go there. That's going to go ahead and launch everything that you can then start with. And a big part of that is we got to make that button disappear so then we can show the actual math problems and sort of this quiz question stuff that we saw earlier. So I think visually, let's go ahead and get that side up first, and then we'll go ahead and work on the code in order to make that go away. So go ahead and go to our activity main.xml. Wait for this to come up. Android Studio is screaming at us like, hey, come on, I just created this thing. Give me a second to get everything up and running here. Okay, Android Studio, we'll give you a second, but nothing much more. All right, Android Studio finally finished here. And so the first thing we want to do, let's get rid of the text view that we have. And there we go, that's gone. Now we want to bring out a button. And we will just want this thing to be in the center of the screen. So I'm just going to right click and say you should be centered horizontally in parent. Also center vertically in parent. Good. Now the actual text that should go here, I like go with the exclamation point. That looks good to me. I want to do a little bit of styling with this. So there's a couple of things that I want to change. And I guess before we get into that, right here in this on click, we should give this a name. So I'm just going to call this start. Okay, once we got that in place, then I want to go fix some of these text issues here. So the first one is I want to go fix the font size. So let's go ahead and see text size here. Let's go ahead and bump up, see what it looks like a little bit bigger. Well, we really want to show that, we're going to get this thing off to a bang. Excellent. There we go. The next thing that we want to do is we want to add some padding to this. So, we want to make sure that there's just kind of some extra spacing around here. So maybe let's see what it looks like with 20 dp. Yeah, that grew out quite a bit. I mean, we could maybe go a little more. Let's see, 40. Yeah, that's looking much better. Okay. The next thing that we want to do is we want to be able to work with the background color. So let's go ahead and move this out in the background tint. This is where we want to change this. So if you go ahead and hit this little ellipses, you can choose some different colors here. And let's go ahead and see what this green one looks like. Oh yeah, that is what we are looking for. All right. Hit the switch back here. I'm going to give this a proper ID. I'm going to call this go button. And once we've got that in place, we can then go ahead and write the code so that when someone clicks on this, they can go and get that thing to disappear. So what we want to do is create a new function here, public void, and we called this start. And of course, this is going to have a view as a parameter. We got to make sure with this view that we hit enter there so we get the proper stuff imported. And we'll do our curly brackets, and inside of here we're going to use what we learned last time, and that's setting the visibility of the button to be invisible. Now in order to do that, we have to have access to the button. So we'll come up here as a property to this class, we'll say button, and we'll call this our go button. Okay, and then inside of our onCreate, this is where we'll properly set this up. So we'll say, go button is equal to find view by ID, capital R.id go button. There we go. And looks like we didn't hit enter on this to get the proper imports up there. Okay. Now that we got that, we can say go button dot, and we're going to set the visibility. And with this visibility, we wanted to say capital view dot, and we'll say invisible. So let's go ahead and give this a run on the simulator. Make sure this is good to go, and then, we can move forward. All right, so the app finally loaded here. Let me go ahead and click on the button, and look at that. It disappears just like we were hoping for. So that's the easy part. Now we got to get into the more difficult stuff. All right, so let's go ahead and work on the visual side of this app a little bit more. And for one, simplicity of not always having to hit the go button, and also save us some time and make it easier to work here, we're going to go ahead and select this button, and we're going to change its visibility to be invisible so that we can add some more things here. But then also we don't always have to click this every single time that we open up the app. So we need to add some text views. For example, we need the timer up here. We need to have the score up here. And then we also need to have the sum that the user is trying to figure out there as well. So let's go ahead and add some text views. We'll start first with the top left. And let's go ahead and just add sort of what the defaults are there, 16 and 16. And the text that's going to go inside of here maybe would be something like, 30 seconds. Now that's quite small, so I think we should go ahead and up the text size here. So let's scroll down. Let's go to our text size, maybe try something like 40. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. Then let's go ahead and scroll to the very top here. We want to change the padding. Maybe let's just go ahead and put 10 around that. And then we want to go ahead and add some background color here. So we'll go ahead, say that we want a color, and for this one, let's go ahead and choose maybe something like this light orange. Okay, that looks good. Next thing that we want to add here is another text view. So let's go ahead and add this one. It should go in the top right. Now this is going to contain the score for the user. So if we double click on this, we may be something for initially be something like 0 out of 0. Then we got to go do all of our classic stuff here. So our size, we'll set that to 40. Then we want to go to our padding, set that to 10. And let's go ahead and give this background color as well. There it is. And for this one, let's go ahead and choose a different color. Maybe try like this light blue. Nice. Okay, looking good. Then, and I forgot with this, we didn't set the proper constraints on this. So let's go ahead and switch back here. I'm going to put 16 at the top, and we want this to be 16 on the right. So let's go ahead and choose that. There we go. I was saying, why is that thing so squished to the side? Well, it's because we didn't put anything in there. That would make sense. All right. And then last thing that I want to add here for now is just a sum that's going to show up in the middle of the screen. So for this one, let's go ahead and right click and, say that this thing should be centered horizontally within the parent. And then we want it a certain distance from the top. So maybe let's just go ahead and choose 16 for now. We can go ahead and play around with this. But again, with this text, we want to go ahead and bump it up. Maybe not as much as some of the others. Let's see what, something like 30 dp looks like. And then let's go ahead and set some padding on this one. And since we kept smaller size, maybe let's try like a 15 padding to see what that looks like. Looks good to me. And really the last thing that we want to check here is just change the text. So maybe it would be some sort of example problem like 31 plus 7. Okay, so we've got that in place. We've got the timer, the score, this. Let's go ahead and give proper IDs to all these things here. So for this one, let's go ahead and call it sum text view. You know, it's kind of like, oh, it's just some old text view. No, some as in, you know, adding numbers together. For our timer here, let's appropriately call it timer text view. And then lastly, we want to go ahead and take this one and call it score text view. Now, there's nothing like, you know, sacred or absolutely essential of calling this score text view or timer text view. These are just names that I've decided upon, and you can use completely different ones if you want, but I think the more descriptive you are of what it is that you have here, the more that's going to help. All right, the next thing that we need to do is we need to add all the buttons so that the user can make an answer, right? There's 4 possible answers there. And so in order to do that, I think we should use a grid layout. So we want to go over to layouts, choose grid layout, and we'll just go ahead and drag and drop one of these here on the screen. So we want to now hit the constraints for that. So we'll maybe do just some of the regular ones there. Now with this one, this 8, we actually want to go ahead and get rid of that for a second because we want this to go all the way down to the bottom here. There we go. And so now let's go ahead and select this, add our bottom constraint, and we'll do our left, up, right, all that good stuff. Excellent. Okay, so we've got our grid layout in an excellent position. Now we need to actually go about the business of adding in the buttons. So let's go ahead and add in one button. And when you're adding this, you want to make sure you kind of just go directly into the grid layout like that, not necessarily in there. And the reason is we've got to set a couple of things about this particular button. So we're actually going to go over to the text view of this, and we're going to scroll down until we find that particular button. Here you can see it's the last one, and we have a couple of extra things that we want to fill in here. So as for the text, we want it to be some sort of number, right? Because it's supposed to be the answer to something. So maybe we'll say like 14 or something there. But there's also a lot of other things that we want to edit. So the first one being, because we are working with this layout, we're going to say Android. And then we want to do layout column. And we're going to go ahead and set this equal to 0. Next thing that we want to do is we want to say Android. We now want to do layout row. So let's scroll down until we find that. There we go. We're going to set that equal to 0 as well. The next thing that we want to do is set column width and row width. So, or excuse me, weight. So we're going to do Android layout column weight, and we'll go ahead and set that equal to 1. And we also want to do this again, and we're going to say layout, and we want to get the row weight. There we go. We'll set that to 1. All right. Then again, one more option. We're going to do Android layout, and we want to set the gravity. So we're going to set this equal to fill. And I love the autocompletes on here. It just makes it so much easier to be working with. And then the last thing that we want to set up is the tag. So since we're going to have 4 buttons here, we want to have tags for each of them that kind of say, you know, hey, this is the 0th button, the 1 button, the 2 button, the 3 button, whatever. So we're going to go here and we're going to say Android tag, and we're going to set this equal to 0. All right. So this is looking pretty good. There's a couple more attributes that we want to set. So let's go ahead and go back to design here for a second, and we'll just set all of these now over here. So the first one being, we want to, you know, mess with this text a little bit. I think it's too small. So let's go ahead and edit this text size, and let's make this really big. I'm going to say, you know, something like 80. Might end up being too big. We'll see what happens there. Also, we want to have a good background color for this, so let's go ahead and move up to our background, and we will choose a color. Maybe for this one, we'll choose more of a red. Okay, and let's see. Oh, the on click. We've got to say what happens, you know, when someone wants to tap on one of these. And so something cool that we're going to do is for each of the buttons, we're going to put the same on click, which is going to be choose answer. But then this way, regardless of which button gets tapped on, come on, choose answer. So regardless of which one gets tapped, this function is going to get called, and then it's just going to be a matter of choosing the right tag to see that we got that correct. But once we have all of that in place, this button is looking good. We just need to essentially duplicate this. We're going to go back to our text here, and then what we're going to do is we're going to take our whole button here, just copy and paste the whole button, and copy that, and then we're going to paste it 3 more times so that we have a total of 4 buttons. And if we did this successfully, we should see the 4 buttons showing there, but there's a couple of things that we've got to edit with each. So the first one, for this button, we're going to call this button 0 for its ID so that we know it can kind of be unique and it's got a tag of 0, right? And we're going to keep the column at 0. We're going to keep the row at 0. For this next button, we are going to have the column be 1. Okay, and we're going to have the ID on this one be 1. We're going to keep the row at 0, but the tag, we're also going to update that to 1. So there you can see we get a little bit of a difference there. Okay, then we're going to come down. This is going to be button number 2. So we're going to keep the column at 0, but this time make the row 1. We're also going to update this tag to be 2 so it connects with the button. So we so far have button 0, 1, 2. And then the last one here, this is going to be our button 3. Let's go ahead and update its tag to 3. And then for both the row and the column, we are going to set those equal to 1. And there you can see we have the 4 buttons. So that's all looking good. Really the last thing that we just got to change here is the colors for each of those. So we're going to go ahead and update this. And you can see we're getting an error here because it's saying, hey, you said that there's going to be this method handler called choose answer, but there isn't one. Well, give us a second here, Android Studio. We'll get to that. But we'll select this button. Let's go ahead and change its color. Let's maybe do like a purple for this one. And then with this guy, let's go ahead and see what colors we got here. Let's maybe do like a darker blue. Okay, and then with this one, let's see if we can't get something a little bit lighter. Let's try like a light green. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so we successfully have the buttons showing up here inside of a grid layout, which is great. We also have buttons with the appropriate colors and everything, and we have these kind of cool this tag system. It's going to make it just that much easier to work with when we're trying to identify, hey, what button was it that they, chose for all of this. So one last thing that we want to fix is with this grid layout, we want to change its layout height, and we want this to be wrap content. And by doing this, it's just going to go to however big, those buttons happen to be. So when we do this, we're going to have to go ahead and edit our top constraint here to make this a little bit more saying that, hey, we need this to go exactly the same width. But then for the bottom, we're going to go ahead and delete this bottom constraint. So that way it's just kind of up at the top. And if, we feel like we need more space here, we can always bump this up, to be something like 15, but you can totally choose that. Last thing that we just want to do is we want to add one last text view. I know we've been doing a lot of visual stuff here, but we're almost done. And with this text view, let's go ahead and have it be certain width above. Right now it's connecting to the go button, which that's probably fine. We might want to change that later to be actually connecting there, but we'll go ahead and roll what we have with for now. And let's go ahead and change this to say correct. So this is going to show whether they got the answer correct or incorrect. So let's go ahead and change some of the attributes for this. The biggest one just being the text size. So let's see what maybe something like 50 looks like. Yeah, that's pretty good. Let's make sure we get this centered. So we'll go ahead and say center horizontally and parent. Looks good. And really then the last thing that we just want to do is go give that a proper ID. So we'll call this the result text view. And with that, we finally have the visual part of this app ready to go. In fact, if we want to go ahead and just make sure that this is looking like what we thought it was, let's go ahead and give this a run on the emulator. But outside of that, I mean, we just have to kind of programmatically connect everything up now. So we're at a pretty good place. So here comes the app. Go ahead and have our simulator here, and look at that. Yeah, Android does a great job of showing you the preview of what your layout's going to look like. When you run on the actual device, it's almost always exactly the same, which is great. Okay, so let's go ahead and work on getting things working programmatically. All right, let's go ahead and jump over to our Java file here, where we'll go ahead and write the code to make all this magical stuff happen. So the first thing that we got to do is we got to make it so that we can determine what numbers we should be adding together, right? What is going to be the problem that we're trying to get the user to solve? So we need to have two different integers, and I think probably the best way to represent these is just with two integers, maybe one called a that we could set to some number, and one called b that we'll set equal to another number. But we don't always want it to be 5 or 6, for example, right? Like we want it to be random every single time. So in order to do that, we need to introduce some randomness. So we're going to say random, and make sure you hit enter on that to get the import, and we'll call our randomness rand. We're going to set this equal to new random. Excellent. And now that we have this, we can go ahead and take this and say, okay, a, you're going to be equal to rand.nextInt, and you can actually pass in, how many numbers you want it to go through. And we want our numbers to be between 0 and 20. So we're going to pass in 21, because we're saying we want you to pick 21 different numbers, the lowest being 0, the highest being 20. So that's going to kind of be our range. We want to do the exact same thing for b. So we're going to say rand.nextInt, and we're going to pass in a bound of 21 there. Okay. So what this does is it successfully chooses random numbers for A and for B. And so as our next step, let's go ahead and display this to the user here to say, here's A plus B. So we need to get access to that text view. And I guess I should have checked and seen what the ID of this is, sum text view. There we go. So let's go over here inside of our onCreate. We've got a new text view, and we'll call this sum text view. So it'll be equal to find view by ID, r.id.sum text view. Excellent. Now that we have access to the text view, we can say sum text view dot set text, and we got to do a little bit of conversion to make these ints into strings, but we'll just go ahead and say integer dot toString, and we'll pass in a. Then we want to add a string where we have a space, the plus button, and then another space. And then we're going to add on to this another integer that we shall turn into a string. toString, there we go. And we want to pass in b this time. Okay, so we should be able to see that. Let's go ahead and give this a quick test. Make sure it's working. We should see two new random numbers, because currently what we have is 31 plus 7, so we definitely shouldn't see 31, because we are supposed to have numbers between 0 and 20. And let's check it out. Look at that, 18 plus 18. And that's kind of surprising that we got the exact same number. I want to run that one more time just because, maybe it was just odd that it randomly picked those same numbers. 0 plus 0. Let's run this one more time. Is it really possible that it picked the same two numbers 2 times in a row? I'm starting to think we have an issue with our code. Yeah, 6 plus 6. It's too perfect that it's, going and grabbing these things. So we have int A, we have int B. We're turning this int into a string, turning that into a string. I just don't know why it would be doing this. I keep hitting run like I'm expecting. Look at that. Okay, you guys saw this on video. I was checking, like the code was right. 3 times in a row, A and B were the exact same thing. What are the odds of that? If someone knows statistics, go run the odds on that. I feel like I should go buy a lottery ticket or something. Holy cow, that was freaky. But anyways, okay, that's good. We were successfully able to get our two numbers to show up. Man, I'm still just kind of freaking out about what just happened here. But okay, but we got to keep moving, even though crazy things like this happen. And the next thing that we want to do is that we want to set what these answers should be. One of them needs to be correct, the other ones need to be incorrect, but we also want the answers to be a little bit random. So we kind of got to work a little bit of magic here. And so I think the best way to handle this is we can make an array that's going to hold all the potential answers that the user could enter in. So let's go up here, add a new property. We are going to create an array list, and we want this to be an array list of integer. Say, okay, so I guess we could say of integers, but we've got it in here, say just singular integer. There we go. Finally got my spelling right. And I'm just going to simply call this answers, and this should be equal to a new array list of integers. Okay, and we'll do our semicolon. All right. So we have that array list. Then what we want to do is we want to be able to fill that full of some information. So probably the best way to handle this is to just use a for loop. So we'll go ahead and do one of our classic for loops. And inside of here, we'll start by saying int I should be equal to 0. We want to know when I is less than, and we want this to be 4 because we want this to run 4 times. And then we want to say each time I plus plus. Okay, so that should successfully, oh, I forgot we need the semicolon there, not just a comma. All right, so this should run through 4 times, and each time basically the idea is that we want to be adding something into the array. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our answers array, and we're going to say .add, and this is where we would want to add one of the answers. So the first thing that, like I said, we have to have 3 incorrect answers and 1 correct answer. So in order to kind of go ahead and do this math, first we should determine which one of these boxes is going to be the correct answer. So let's go ahead and just use our randomness again. And what we're going to do is create a new int. We're going to call this location of correct answer. Okay, and we are going to set this equal to rand.nextInt, and we're going to pass in the number 4 because we want it to pick between 0 all the way to 3, and that's saying, there's 4 different integers that could possibly be. So now that we have this location of the correct answer, before we do this answers.add, we can go ahead and check and see, hey, is I, which is, I is going to be 0, 1, 2, or 3, and location of correct answer is going to be either 0, 1, 2, or 3. So we'll just say, hey, if I is equal to the location of the correct answer, then we know that this, when we do our answers.add, that we should simply add whatever a plus b is, right? So very simple. We'll just say a plus b, semicolon, bam. It's as easy as that. Now, the little bit of a tricky part comes from, well, if we're not adding a correct answer, then we need to add a incorrect answer. So as far as the incorrect answer goes, if we're adding any number between 0 and 20 with another number from 0 to 20, that means we would have some sum that's either going to be between 0 and 40. So for that, we just want to simply say answers.add, and we want to go ahead and add some random number between 0 and 40. So we can in fact just go ahead and copy this code from above, where we take a random integer and just paste that in and change it from 21 to 41. So this could be good, but there is one issue with this is and you saw what my luck is like here earlier when I was filming, is what happens if, the sum of A and B happen to be like 14 and one of the random numbers happens to be 14, right? Like that's not a good thing. That's not what we want to do. And so what we need to do is we need to have some sort of check to say, hey, if the random number that we created is the same thing as A plus B, we need to pick a new random number. So there's kind of a cool way that we can do this with a while loop. We can go ahead and first create an int that we're going to call wrong answer. Okay, so we're going to say the wrong answer is equal to this, random number between 0 and 40, okay? Then with this random number, what we're going to do is a while loop that says, okay, while the wrong answer is equal to A plus B, all right, then we want to get a new wrong answer. So we're going to say wrong answer, just exactly the same code as we have here. Go ahead and paste that in. It's basically saying, hey, go pick a new one because what we were choosing doesn't add up. So after all of this, this will make sure that we have a unique number. Then we'll go ahead and take wrong answer and add that into the array. Okay. So we're at a pretty good spot here. We have an array of the correct and the wrong answers. Really, the next step for us is we've got to get these things to show up inside of our buttons. So what we're going to do is we're going to move to the top here, and we are going to create all of our buttons in code. So let's go ahead and make our first button, and we'll just call this button 0. Okay, and this is equal to find view by ID, capital R dot ID, and then we want button 0. Okay, and then we just need to copy this code for the other 3 buttons. So we'll just copy, paste, 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 and we'll change that to button 1, 2, and 3. And then we've got to change these IDs to be 1, 2, and 3. So then this gives us each of the buttons. So then once we have those, we just want to set up what the answers to those buttons are going to be. So we're going to go ahead and start first with button 0. We'll say button 0 dot set text, and then what we want to pass inside of here is the integer dot toString of whatever we get from answers, and at this situation we want to get it the dot get for the 0 position. Okay, so this is for button 0, and we're just going to go ahead and paste this and change this up for button 1, 2, and 3, and then we're going to go get index of 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so this should be everything that we need in order to go get this working. Let's go ahead and run the app, make sure it's exactly what we're hoping for. Okay, so go ahead and hit run here on the emulator. Take a look at what we get. So 1 plus 1 is 2, and then look, we get 3 other answers that are all incorrect, but within the range that we want. Okay, let's try this again. We'll hit run. And man, I still can't believe earlier how we were getting those same numbers. 7 plus 17, that's going to be 24, I believe. And look at that, we've got 3 other answers which are all incorrect. Okay, so we're at a great place, but still got more to do. All right, let's go ahead and add the appropriate code so that the user can actually select one of these answers, and we can tell the user, hey, either you're right or you're wrong about what it is that you chose. So let's go ahead and go back to this main activity.xml, and let's see, I just want to remember what was the name of the function that we chose here for the onClick, and maybe that's up at the top. I'm going to go to the simpler view here. Choose answer. Okay, so we're going to create a new function here. Public void choose answer. That's going to take in a view just like that, and we'll do our curly brackets. Excellent. Now, the first thing that we want to know is what button was it that the user actually chose. So in order to get that, we have to access the view. And if we actually just type out view dot, we can actually do get tag, and that's going to show us what the tag is, and we can take this thing and turn it into a string. So let's just go ahead and log this just to make sure that this is working. So log.i, and we're going to log out the tag. So we'll first say tag colon, then we'll do a comma and print that out. Excellent. And log, there we go. All right, let's go ahead and run this on the emulator, and I'll go ahead and pop open logcat so we can see what's going on there. Okay, here we go. So I tap on this button. Look at that. Tag 0, tag 1, tag 2, tag 3. So look at that. We are successfully able to figure out what, button it is that they are tapping here, which is great. But then the question is, how do we make sure that they were choosing the correct one and all that good stuff? So the first thing that we essentially got to do is we got to compare this tag to whatever the correct answer was. And if you remember down here below, we have this location of correct answer, but we are choosing this here inside of this function, which means we don't have access to it here. So we should take this location of correct answer. I'm going to copy this and delete the int declaration, and then we'll go ahead and define that up here so that we can have access to it in this function. So what we're going to do is we're going to compare here. So once we get the views tag and we turn that into a string, the next thing that we need to do is figure out what the correct answer is. And so, and we turn that into a string. So we're going to do integer.toString, and we're going to use that location of correct answer. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and compare these two things. Now remember, when you're comparing strings, you want to do a dot equals. So we'll go ahead and throw that in there. Excellent. So we want to say if, and we'll put this in parentheses. And just like that, do our curly brackets. So this is basically checking, hey, is the location of the correct answer the same thing as the tag? If it is, then we know that the user got everything right. So we'd want to do a log.i, and we'd say correct. Correct. That's not what we want. Come on now. Let's say you got it. And the next thing that we'd want to do is put an else here and say, hey, if this didn't happen, we'd want to go ahead and log a wrong. And we'll do something like a sad face or something like that. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this. And here's the app. So 18 plus 16, I believe that's 34. And if we tap on that, logcat says you got it. But if I tap on 20, it's wrong. 25, wrong. 1, wrong. All these are wrong. But if we go for this, it keeps saying you got it. Okay. So good stuff there. That is all good. But then think about, what is it that we want to have happen next? Well, we want to essentially have a new answer or new question come through with new answers. We want to keep score of everything that's going on here, and we want to update this text view. Like, there's a couple of things that we want to have happen here. So I think the first thing that we should do, very simply, let's just go ahead and get this text view all fixed out. So what we're going to do is we're going to define our text view that I believe we called result text view. So if not, that's what I'm going to call it. So we're going to call that result text view. Now we need to make sure we set that equal to something here in the onCreate. So we're going to say result text view is equal to our find view by ID, r.id.result text view. Beautiful. Then we can use that to, rather than just logging some information here, we can say result text view dot set text, and we'll say correct if they got it correct. And if they did not get it correct, we'll set the text equal to wrong, and let's do wrong with a frowny face. That'll kind of emphasize. Wrong. Come on, you can spell, Nick. Awesome. So we've got that in place. The next thing that we should do is focus on the score here. We want to be able to keep track of the score. So let's go ahead and create a new int that we are going to call score. This will keep track of how many things they've gotten right. We want that initially to be equal to 0, so we'll start that at 0. So if someone gets a question correct, then we want to take the score and do a plus to say, hey, go ahead and add 1 onto that. If we're going to be doing the score, we also have to keep track of how many questions in total they've been asked. So we need another int in which we're going to call number of questions. Okay, and this will set equal to 0 for the start as well. So regardless of whether they get it right or wrong, we want to increase the number of questions here, right? So we'll say number of questions plus. That looks good. And after this, I think the next thing that we've got to do is actually update the score to show what we have. And so let's go ahead and check what was the ID of that score text view. That's a pretty good name. That makes sense. So we'll go ahead and say we need a new text view. We are calling score text view. And we're going to just define this for now. And then on our onCreate method, we will say score text view. We're going to set that equal to find view by ID, r.id.score text view. Excellent. Okay, so now that that's in place, we could actually come here and say, okay, score text view. And I'm just going to, there was a space there that was kind of bothering me. So score text view dot set text. So basically we want to say the number of their score slash the number of questions, right? You got like 0 out of 1 or 1 out of 1, something like that. So we're going to take integer.toString. So we want to take whatever the score is. Then we're going to add onto this a slash, and then add onto this the number of questions. But again, we've got to convert that to a string. So we're going to say dot toString, and we'll put number of questions there. Okay. So let's go ahead and see what this looks like. We'll open up the app. Okay. Oh. It crashed for some reason. Let's try that again. It really doesn't like what we're doing here. Let me go take a look at these errors. So I figured out what the error was, and I just want to show you how I sort of arrived at that situation. So down here in the error, we can see there's some issue with the text view, and it's on our main activity.java at line 48. So if we go to line 48, and we can see, okay, result text view is equal to find view by ID. Now there's a misspelling here, but we're not exactly sure what the issue is. Well, what happened as I came back here, I accidentally called the whole constraint layout result text view when I meant it to be this text view. So I want to go take this constraint layout. It doesn't need an ID right now, so I'm just going to delete its ID. Then I'm going to come back to this text view, and I'm going to appropriately call this result text view. Okay, with the proper spelling. I even misspelled the other one, and it was on the wrong thing, so it was sort of a double whammy there. So once we have that, we want to go back and then change this code to actually be result text view. There we go. And now hopefully when we run this, that should get rid of that error for us. So a little bit of debugging there, happens all the time in programming. It's just you got to know how to find your error. So let's see, 17 plus 17 is 34. Go ahead and tap that. Look, we get a 1 out of 1. Let's say I'd picked the wrong answer. Look at that. Now I have 1 out of 2. 1 out of 3, and it's telling me wrong, but if I do the correct answer, it switches it back to correct. And yeah, this is good. It's keeping track of our score. We're getting the correct message down here. Really, all that we need to do is we need to reset the whole game to say, okay, once somebody goes and decides, picks an answer, we tell them whether they're right and wrong. We're already doing that. We update the score, but then we also need to go reset the whole game to say, okay, we need like a new problem and everything. So as you can probably guess, it's most of this code we need to go move into its own function. So we're going to go ahead and create a new method, public void new question, and we won't take in anything there. But basically what we want to do is we want to take a lot of code that we have inside of here. So basically everything from random all the way down, we're going to go ahead and copy this, or actually cut rather, paste it inside of new question, and then we want to type out the new question, call the new question method where we had all that before. So we're going to have a bunch of errors here. The big ones are that our buttons are right now created inside of here and defined here, where we actually want to do this up at the top so we can use them within multiple methods. So we'll do button 0, and I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste this. So there's a total of 4, and I can update this for each of our buttons. And then inside of here, when we are defining our buttons, there we go, we will not define, we'll just set them equal to something. So go ahead and delete all of that. Good. So that should get rid of a lot of our errors. Same thing with the sum text view. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this, delete the beginning there, and then we'll go ahead and paste this up top. And with that, we should see everything better. So we now have all that code inside of new question. We do want to make sure that we go ahead and actually call this after someone has chosen an answer. We've updated the number of questions, the score, all that good stuff. Then we want to go ahead and call new question. Now there's one last thing that we have to fix, and it may not be obvious, and that's that in our code right now we have this array list that contains all the answers, right? And whenever this is called, we're going to basically just add in 4 extra answers. So we got to make sure that before we do this for loop where we add everything, that we actually clear out everything that's inside of that array. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take our array list, which we called answers, and we are going to say clear on this, which will essentially wipe out everything there. So let's go ahead and give this a test. As you can see, we're getting closer and closer to the finished product here. Once we get this in place, it's really going to be that timer that is going to be our central focus. So let's go ahead and pick a wrong answer. Like 2 here, it says wrong. We have 0 out of 1, but look at this. We have a brand new question. This is our chance at redemption. So I think the answer to this one is 31. And look at that. I was correct. Now I'm 1 out of 2. Let's choose another wrong answer. Oh, now I'm 1 out of 3. Another wrong answer. 1 out of 4. Let's do a correct one now. 3, 24. Look, I'm on a hot streak. 29. I feel embarrassed doing math on the fly here, although it's kind of exciting. I don't know. It will be fun to do it against the timer here. But yeah, I mean, the basic functionality is here. We're getting new questions and, incorrect answers, all that good stuff. But really, the next thing that we got to work on is this timer. So let's go ahead and write the code for a new timer. We're going to go to our onCreate method down here. And after we've gone ahead and gotten a new question, we want to create a new countdown timer. So we're going to say new countdown timer. There we go. And inside of here, this is where we're going to want to put the time. So we want our timer to be 30 seconds long. So we want to do 30,000 milliseconds. Although remember, we have to add that 1/10 of a second. So I'm going to do 30,100 there. And we want to know every 1,000 milliseconds that, hey, we've got to update some code with this. And we'll go ahead and do our curly brackets there. Now we want to add the new functions for this. Oh, I forgot we want to do a .start at the end of that. And now if we hover over here, we can implement our 2 famous methods. So the first one that we want to do on the onTick, basically the only job of onTick is to update the timer text view. So we can actually go ahead and grab that timer text view. Let's make a new text view here. So we're going to say text view, timer text view. Okay. Then we'll come down on our onCreate and we'll say timer text view is equal to find view by ID, r.id timer text view. There we go. So since we have access to this, basically what we want to do is display the time remaining, which is inside of this long, in milliseconds. So basically we need to do L divided by 1,000, and then we need to also add on top of this the letter S. So get ready to tack that on. But we've got to turn all of this into a string. So we're going to say integer.toString, and we'll go ahead and put that. Oh, well, this is a long, though. It's not an integer. So this is where we're going to have to say string.valueOf. And this is where we'll do L divided by 1,000. And then we'll go ahead and add that S onto there. So this gives us the string that we want. But then we have to put this inside of the timer text view. So we're going to say timer text view dot set text. Oh, not tag. Set text. There we go. And we'll go ahead and throw that right inside. Okay, so we should see that updating the time as we go along. And then as far as the onFinish function goes here, this is where we would want to, sort of tell the user, hey, we finished up with everything. And so the big thing that we want to do here is we want to update this text view to say, hey, we are done. So we'll go ahead and get that. That is the result text view, and we'll set its text equal to done, just like that. And let's go ahead and run this and see what we get now with our app. So the big thing that we're looking for is that this timer is going to be counting down, and we'll see how this goes. And look at that. We've got 26, 25, right? And it's just slowly going down. This is exactly what we're looking for, okay? So with this in place, there's a couple of things that we've got to worry about now. And the big one is that, after someone has finished, we have to, have a way for them to sort of play again. So we want to add a new button to our app so that essentially when this thing goes down to done, oh, look at that, so cool, that we can actually add a button there. And you can see that was a long time to wait for the timer to go down. So just while we're testing here, I'm just going to make this 5 seconds. But again, we need to have a button here. So let's go ahead and grab a button. We'll put it right below correct. So first let's go ahead and center this guy. So that's centered horizontally, and we'll have it a certain space from our correct there. And we're going to call this play again button. Okay. And the text for this button should just be play again. So we'll double click here. We'll change that to say play again. Oh no, gotta play again. There we go. And I'm not spelling that correctly. I was saying something's wrong with that. Again. There we go. Great. Now that we've got this in place, we also want to set an on click for this. So I'm going to call that play again. And let's go back to our code and add that new method here. So I'm going to say public void play again, where we go and get a view. Go ahead and do our little curly brackets there. So when someone taps on this, essentially what we want to do is we want to sort of reset the game for everybody. So there's a couple of things that got to happen here. And I guess the first one is we want this button to be hidden initially, but then we want it to be able to show up. So we're going to come on its visibility, and we're going to say that it should be invisible. But when the game is finished, right, when we go on our timer, where's our timer friend? There we go. On the on finish, after we say done, we want to make that button visible. But first we got to get access to that button. So we're going to say button play again. And inside of our on create is where we'll get that all set up. So say play again is equal to our find view byte ID, r.id play again button. All right. Now that we have access to that, we want to say, okay, play again button. Oh, did I just call that play again? Yeah, we should call that play again button. Let's be consistent with our naming here. There we go. All right. So now we can take our play again button, and we can go ahead and change the visibility. So we're going to say set visibility. We'll say capital view dot visible, just like that. So then all of a sudden that button's going to be shown, which then means if it is shown and then if it is clicked, this play again is going to be called. And then this is where we sort of want to reset the game. So the big things that we want to do is we want to set our score equal to 0. That's a big one. We want to set the number of questions back equal to 0. We want to set our timer back to square one. So there's a couple of things here. First, for the timer text view, we want to set its text to be back to 30 seconds, just like that. But then we actually want to recreate the timer. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to cut this timer code here, and we'll actually paste it here so that this is created, and then we'll make it so that when the app opens up for the very first time, we'll just call play again. So rather than here on the onCreate doing this new question, blah, 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 all this stuff, we are just going to call play again. Now, the one tricky thing is that play again is asking for a view. So we can go ahead and just pass it any sort of view. So I might just go ahead and grab, I don't know, something like this timer text view and go ahead and pass it there. It doesn't really matter because we don't use it inside of the play again function, but we just have to kind of put something in there so that we can call this function. Okay, so we've got the play again. We set the score equal to 0, the number of questions equal to 0. We get that 30 seconds back, all that good stuff. We do want to do our reset of the questions here. So even before we get this timer started here, we want to call our function, what did we call that? New question. So we're going to go ahead and say new question, just like that. So new question, this is going to go through and create the answers, right? Go ahead and update all that. There are a few things that aren't happening, and that's, for example, we need to like reset the score and whatnot. So we can actually just copy this one line of code. Okay, we'll take this and we'll paste this as well to say, hey, go update what the new score is, and it should just be 0/0. I mean, if we wanted to, we could hard code 00 here, but we already updated those things. We might as well just go ahead and do that. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this. I'm sure we're going to have more to do, but let's just make sure we're at least to an okay point. And I'm sure by testing this out, we'll see what it is that we need to fix on our app. So here it comes. I'll try answering a few questions here. I didn't get anything right. 0 out of 3. And look at that. Our play again button showed up. So I'll click on that. And look at that. We went back. It started the timer again. It reset everything. But the one thing that we missed is this play again button didn't go away. So that's one thing that we're going to want to fix here. And so let's go ahead and take our play again button. And we're going to set visibility to capital view.invisible. So that should get rid of that. And let's go ahead and try this. So here comes the app. And, I'll go ahead and pick some answers here. And look, I only got 1 out of 6. That was too bad. I'll hit play again. The play again disappears and I'm back to a 0 score. So I can pick a bunch of different things. And look at this. And let's make sure the question is changing. So I've got 3 plus 11 as the current one. I hit play again. Look at that. It updates. It updated to 8 plus 11, so just slightly off, but it did do that. So really the last step for us is we just got to make it so that when we first open up the app, there's that nice big go button. Everything else is hidden. And then as soon as we hit that, it starts the game and all that good stuff. So one way that we could do this is just go take all these things and, initially set them into invisible. And then when it's time to go, we set them equal to visible, right? But that would be a lot of code to do that. So one way that we can kind of get around this is we can add another constraint layout to our existing constraint layout, and the top constraint layout will just contain the go button and the other constraint layout, which will then house all these other items. So let me kind of show you how we can do this. We'll go ahead and add a constraint layout here. And like I said, the big thing is that we want to have everything but that go button. So I'm going to select everything else below, and I'm just going to click and drag and put those inside of the constraint layout. So you'll notice it did kind of move things a bit around, but the real thing that it moved was, remember our result text view when I had it based off of the go button instead of this? Well, we would have had 0 issues if I had done it that way, but because it was connected there, it's having all sorts of problems. So we want to take this results text view, just delete the current constraint that it has. Let's go ahead and move it down, and you'll see correctly the play button is coming down with it. And so we'll go ahead and move it down, and we'll hit our little plus here to say, hey, now you should be connected up with that grid layout. And once we do that, everything's looking excellent. So with that, what we want to do is come back to our code here, and on our onCreate, the one thing that we want to do is make sure our go button is actually visible instead of invisible. So we're going to go ahead and take this go button that we have just referenced, and we're going to say set visibility. We'll say capital view dot visible. That way we can see it. And we don't want to do play again until the user has actually hit the start button and is ready to go. And so we're going to go ahead and move this up to our start, where we set the go button to be invisible, and we start this play again stuff. But then we've got to work with now this new constraint layout. Let's give this an ID. We'll call this game layout. Okay. Then what we've got to do is reference this game layout. So I'm going to say constraint. Got to spell it correctly. Constraint layout, game layout, and then we'll go ahead and set this in the onCreate. So we'll say game layout is equal to find view by ID r.id.game layout. Excellent stuff. And once we have that in position, not only do we want to set the goes buttons visibility, we want to set the game layout visibility. And we're going to say view.invisible. Now you might be wondering, well, why don't we, just at the start, here inside of our visual stuff, set this visibility, equal to invisible and stuff like that. And for me, I'd rather have, do that code programmatically so I can still come back and make changes, because I really don't care too much about designing that go button. It's really more about these pieces. So if I had to come back and make some changes, it'd be nice to have that option there. And then also with this game layout, we want to make sure that it is visible when the game is actually played. So we'll go ahead and switch this to say visible. Excellent. And now with all this in place, let's go ahead and make sure on our timer we are doing a full 30 seconds. Let's go ahead and give this game a try. So we'll go ahead and hit run here. Okay, here comes the app. And look at that. It's all nice and white. It's fairly like, okay, are you ready to do this? And I'm going to do this for real. Let's see how fast I can get these answers. So I'm going to go ahead and hit go. 7, 17, 23, 6, 25, 25, 24, 13, 29, 15, 19, 21, 13, 29, 22, 23, 10, 12, 24, 6, 2, 22, 20. Oh, look at that. Okay, so 23. Wasn't able to do one every second. That would be speedy if you can, but let's go ahead and try, the play again. And look at that. We're ready to go. So one thing it looks like I did notice is when we got all the way down to 0, it was still showing the message done rather than showing kind of like going blank for the very first time. So maybe let's go ahead and have that be part of play again, where we go ahead and take our result text view and we're going to set its text to be just equal to an empty string. And we'll go ahead and run this one more time. Okay, app opens up, we hit go, and look at that, we can start making some choices. Just see how many times I can click this. Dun, 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 dun. Well, probably a lot. So while we're waiting for that timer to run out, just want to say congrats on finishing this app. This was a fairly lengthy, chunky app that we made here, but pretty awesome functionally. And we've taken so many concepts that we've learned and just keep rolling them into these apps. Hopefully you're starting to really comprehend the stuff that we've got, and it's really starting to get cemented in. And look at that. Here it comes. Let's hit that button. Oh, look at that. It is an empty string. That's beautiful, but we can, still keep playing. Okay. Our next thing that we're going to move on to is learn how to download some web content. So that's going to be pretty fun. You've been doing great. Keep up the energy. Let's keep trucking.